All right. Going to give you a tutorial now to help you with your functions homework. Right. This is your first program. We did an example in class of how to write some functions. We tried writing some functions for tic-tac-toe, but in this program, right, you've been given a list of functions that you have to write. And you've also been giving pseudocode for what should be happening in main. Right? So you're given this pseudocode for main. We're going to, actually, let me just copy this into a program in terms of comments. And then what we'll do is we'll turn this into actual working code. All right, let me maybe minimize that a bit so I have an easier time copying. All right, so here's our main function, pseudocode. Right. Right, that's a little messy at this point, but this goes in then, right, when I said main function, every C program has a main function. Right, that's going to go in here. Main ends with return 0. Our goal is to make main a little more readable, write other functions that accomplish our task. Right. One of the first things we'll do is we're going to declare and initialize variables. Right. Display our main menu, get a user choice. So let's go back and talk about what this program is supposed to do. Right. The user is going to be given a menu. A main menu looks like this. And they'll be given a choice of things they can do. They can fill an array with random values. They can sum the array. They can find the average value that's stored in the array, the maximum value, the minimum value, or they can display the array values, or then they can quit. Right. Those are the choices that are going to be given. You're told then we're going to make an array. We're just actually going to define the array size as 50. Right. We can't have any global variables other than global constants. Right? We can use a preprocessor directive. We're supposed to use this for the size of our array. So our array is just always going to have 50 in it. Right? That tells us we better declare the array. That's one of the variables we're going to need. We'll come back to taking a look at the menu function and work on it, right, as well. So declare and initialized. Well, that's bad grammar. Initialize variables. That's something we'll want to do. Right. We're going to want to display the main menu. Let's work on that one, and then we'll work on some of the others. Right. So display the main menu. Well, our main menu should look something like this. And its function, so the menu function should display a list of menu choices and then return the user's choice. Let's then say we want ours to look like this. Let's write a function. I'm going to call it display main menu. We're not going to need to pass anything to this function. Actually, I don't know why I put an int there out of habit. This likely won't need to return anything. We actually just want to print out this information. Actually, I could be using puts for this. So let's see if we can't get this to work for us. been a while since I've done multiple strings in a printf. See if I get the syntax correct. Probably not with the commas. I think I need different syntax. So before I do all the syntax wrong, I should probably check. Let's compile. I don't know that that compiled. I'm not getting any messages down here, and I should. Yeah, main.c is in here. What's if I say build? All right, warning implicit declaration, yes. Do I have my pound include? No. And too many arguments for printf. I want to do multiple printfs. Actually, do I do that? If I get rid of this comma, all right. So if I just try to call display main menu from main, build and run. All right, that popped up. All right, that's not formatted the prettiest. All right. Your name should go in under student name. That might look a little nicer there. Something, actually I didn't give you an output example. All right, something that looks like this. Notice the other was indented. All right, we could actually indent with a string. We could use a tab. Or I can do it the old-fashioned hard way. All right, looks a little bit better. And right, maybe I want a little bit room here before I display it. All right, our formatting there looks a little bit better. All right, so we've displayed the main menu. The next thing we want to do is to get the user's choice. Let's write a function that does that. Getting the user's choice is going to involve then displaying the main menu, then having them enter their choice. I'm going to say get menu choice here. Don't need to pass anything to this function. This function is going to return their choice. Their choice is going to be number 1 through 7. I'm going to make the choice a data type of int, so my return type will be int. So I'm going to choice. Right here, I'm going to call display main menu. Instead of from within main, I'm going to call it here. And so my function, get menu choice. So here I'm going to need a variable. I'll call it menu choice here in main. I'm going to set that. I'm going to assign to that whatever get menu choice returns to me. Now I could add in scanf, right? This is an integer, %d. I give it the address of choice. And now I need to return choice, whatever the user types, back to main. All right, so I'm going to step into this function now. I'm going to step into the function, right? I'm going to say next line, that's going to call display main menu. Right, it displays my menu, and now I'm sitting here waiting with scanf. So it looks like I need another line in there to prompt the user to enter their choice. Looks like we better clean that up, because right now I should be able to, well, if I enter the number, actually I have to hit next line so scanf is ready for me. All right, number 1 here, hit the enter key. I can see that this then stored the number 1 inside the variable choice, and I could return choice back to main now simply by doing this. Back in main, menu choice got filled in with a number 1, and it went all the way down here to execute the next line in our code. Right. So let me then add a little bit to this. Right here, display main menu. Right. Here I might then just want to say enter your choice. And let's build and run. All right. So now it's waiting for me to enter some choice. Right, enter a 1, and our program ends. That's all it's equipped to do at this point. All right, so this is a quick way, right? Instead of displaying the menu inside this function, I actually wrote another function that just handles displaying this much of the menu. This function then called that function, right? Prompted the user to enter the choice and return the choice. Right, so that takes care of all of this so far. And then what we need down here is we need something that says while the user chooses not to quit. Right? Well, if we look at our menu, 7 is quit the program. Right? So we could hard code in something here then. It says while menu choice not equal to 7, well, then we want to perform all of these actions or several of these actions. That should be curly braced in the while loop. If I put all of this back in comments here, right? So while we're not choosing be equal to quit, so we could hard code a 7. We could also make, we could say pound define quit program. We could give that a value of 7 if we wanted, and we could say, well, this is not equal to quit program. Right? We'd come into this loop and we'd stay here then executing these various functions. All right. So we could tackle then writing one of these functions next. What we've done so far is we've assumed that the user has typed some sort of valid choice, right? The scanf hasn't failed. We'll come back and talk about how to go with scanf, but this is just a way you can get this much of your code up and running. Right now, in the pseudocode, I purposely put the word switch because I'd like you to use a switch in this program. Okay. So we can actually then turn this into C code, switch on user choice, right? In here, then in our case structure, switch structure here, we have these various cases. This is going to be the end of my switch here. I'm going to put those back in comments. And so here, right, is what we want to do, is that case one, right? Well, case one is we want to fill the array with random values. So in this case, or no pun intended, right, I'm just going to leave the comments in here till we write these functions. Remember, with the switch statement, we have to use a break then to break out of here. Otherwise, we'll fall through and execute the code in the next. Case. All right. So here we can set up our structure. We can just leave these comments in here until we're done. But we could start turning some of the pseudocode into code. Right. And for now, let's not set up the rest of those. We can do that later. All right, so one of the first things we want to do in case one, when they return a 1, we want to fill the array with random values. We need to write a function that does that. And this says, in order to do that, we want to call the fill array function. Right, so we go ahead and take a look at the assignment, and let's take a look at what it says. The function fills the array with random values. We want to ask the user for a range of random values. So we probably need to write a function then called fill array with random values. Now, we need to know what to pass to it. I actually put void as a data type. I don't think this will actually return anything. We don't have an array yet here in main. We need to go ahead and create the array. Right. Now, were we given a data type for the array? Anywhere in the homework were we given a data type for this? Let's see, initialize the array elements to 0. Right. So the program should start by declaring an integer array of size 0. Of size 50, sorry, and initializing that to 0. So integer array, right, size 50. Well, did I have a preprocessor directive for that? I think the assignment said that we should use one, pound to find array size. That should be array size. The program said to initialize it to 0. Well, we can do that with this initializer list here. And we can declare array initialize all elements to 0. Right, that's what that did. All right, now we have an array. So we're going to need to pass that array then to our function. So here, we need to pass it the array. I'm just going to call it A here. Right. This indicates then, these empty brackets indicate I'm passing an array. Now, normally we pass the array length. Here we're using a global for array size. I want you to start practicing these lengths. So maybe I'll just call that a size here. And what we're going to do then is we have two parameters in this list. Right? The first parameter is named a. The function knows it's an array because of the empty bracket notation. Its data type is int. Our second parameter in the list is of type int, and its name is a size. So when we call the function here to fill the array, right, it has this really long name. Copy paste, got me more than what I wanted. Fill array with random values. I need to pass it then the name of my array here in main, named array, and then my array size here. Pass it my array size. All right. All that function needs to do is fill this array. It doesn't need to return any information, so my data type is going to be void. All right. We know that in order to fill an array, we can do something like int I equals 0, I less than a size, because a size in this function is the size of our array. It's good to write it like this because if we wanted to just fill part of the array, we could just not pass it the entire length. So this is the preferred method, is to pass it both the array. So this is a reference to the array. Technically, it's a pointer to the array, and pass it the array size. And then, all right, we could just say a. So here the array is called a at index I. Well, we just could call the rand function, right, and fill it with random numbers. In order to use the rand function, right, we need to use the standard library here. All right, that would fill it with any random numbers. Now your homework says you need to ask the user for that range of random numbers. So ask the user for a range of random numbers. That means we should probably get the high number and the low number before we fill it. There's different ways to do this, right? We could get the number, the high and low, back here in main. Or we could call it from, we could do it from within here. I'd say back in main, when the user chooses this, we're going to ask user for range of random numbers. So we want to get the low value. So maybe we're going to say get low value as a function. When we call that function, it should return back to us whatever the low value is. Actually, I think C will be happy with me declaring something inside here. All right, so low, let's make a low and high. Those are going to be ints, a range of numbers, because our numbers we want to store in the array are in. So let's just go ahead and create an int, a low, a high, a range of random values. All right, now I need to write the function get low value. Right. And its return type will not be void, it will be int. Right. All right. So I can say to the user now, I can say something like, what range of random values would you like? And then here I could say, enter low value. Right. Now I need to have something, I need to read and store that in something. Right. So if that's going to be an int %d, let's call that value here. Right. All right. And now once I have the value, I need to return it. Since the value is of data type int, my return data type here, my functions of type int. Now, I should be able to get the low value. All right. Now what I'm going to do right now while I'm testing this, right, is let's just go ahead and do a run to cursor. And let's look at all the user choice. Oh, boy, I sure didn't change that. So here it's menu choice, right? That's my variable name. And forgot my semicolon. All right. And now it's not happy about me having these other statements. So let's comment out that. Now let's try run to cursor. Close up and I used. Undefined reference to get low value. Oh, well, I spelled it differently. That's definitely an issue. Gotta spell it the same, or it doesn't know what it is. I forgot to give that the address operator. That's that warning. Right, my other warnings are about unused variables and my commenting scheme. All right, let's just build. Actually, I said now I'd like to do a run to cursor to here. All right, so this pops up the main menu. Since I want this to come in to be case 1, I need to have enter menu choice of 1, right? So we can see that my menu choice was 1. We switched on that choice of 1. We come into case 1. This is like saying, case 1 is like saying, if menu choice equals 1, come in here and do these things. Right? Meaning now, let's go ahead and step into our get low value function. Right, so we step into that, right, we come up here, next line, we print that, next line, scanf is now waiting for me to enter some sort of low value, right, -15, maybe that's where I want my low range. So next line, I'm going to return, value has -15, I'm going to return then back here to main, right, now it would call my fill array with random values function, but I'm not finished with that. I just wanted to make sure my low value was working. Right. I could do something now, just the same thing for high value, right? I could say high equals get high value. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to get these first, and now I'm going to pass both low and high to this function. Actually, we'll come back and take care of that. First, we have to write get high value. Well, get high value is going to look just like get low value, except we change its name, right? And here, enter high value. Now we probably don't have to enter this message here, right? What range of random values, because that's going to show up right after then our enter high value. We could put that in. No, let's leave it for now. All right, same structure. Let's comment out this function call here. All right, and let's do a run to cursor. All right, so our menu choice again is 1 while we're testing. What range of random values would I like? Well, let's put my -5 in now. All right, so now I'm here, right? I'm ready to now step into this function here. So if I step in there, right, we're just going to do next line, next line, next line. It's going to wait for me to enter some number. What high value? Oh, I'll make it 9. All right, next line. It's going to return the value of 9 back here to main. All right, high got a value of 9. All right, so let's stop our debugging session now. Now, what I want to do is I want to rewrite fill array with random values. I want to pass it the array. So a reference to the array, right? A pointer to the array by giving it the array name. I want to tell it the array size. I want to pass it low and I want to pass it high. That means I need to change the parameter list here. Right? I need to have something for my low value, high value. Right? There's a one-to-one correspondence in the way it passes this information. Since this expects the array first, then the size, then the low, then the high. Down here, I need to give it the array size, the low, and the high. It's an ordered passing of information. So the order is very important, right? I have to match in order. So now here, in my fill array with random values, is where we can do our high minus low plus 1. That operation needs to be, we need the modulus operator. And then I need to add back my low value. Right. This function is not going to return anything. It's a void type because we have access to the array here. This is technically a constant pointer to this array. So as we go to fill this, when we come back down to main, we'll find out that this has been filled with random numbers. All right, so let's try a run to cursor. All right, so once again, all right, I have to enter my menu choice of 1. What range? Well, there's my minus 14 now. Here's 9. All right, so now I'm back here in main. All right, in main, notice array, it says it's all zeros, repeats 50 times. I'm just going to say next line, so it actually executes that function. And we can see now after that function finished executing, we've got all of these elements stored with different random numbers in that range. Right? So that then took care of how to fill the array with random values. Right? You should now have an idea of how to write these other functions. Right? How to use these case statements in order to do that. The last thing we should probably do here is when we're all done, we want to display the menu again and get the user choice. Right? Before we loop back up to this, we need to get the user choice again. So what we need to do is simply this at the bottom of our loop so that we don't have an infinite loop. Right? We can get that menu choice again. So now if we were to run what we have, I need to stop this. I need to stop the debugger. All right, if I just said build and run. Right, at this point, we know that choice 1 was working. If we do that, I'm going to give it 0. Just give it some numbers. All right, and now it did all of that, right? It filled our array, it cycled back around. Simply because we added this code to cycle back around. If I type in a 7 there, right, our program quits. Right? If I typed in a 1, we would have filled the array with different random numbers. Well, probably the same because I haven't seeded the random number generator. We haven't written those other functions. But you have what you need now to get you to cycle back through this, right? You can now practice writing these other functions, summing the array, averaging the array, all of these others you can then work on. Right? That's going to be the end of this tutorial here. The next tutorial will be talking about what to do when we have bad numbers in the stream. In other words, what happens when scanf fails.